Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists episode 595. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
And my name is Zach.
And we're here to talk movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. And this is just strange because James and I have been talking for like an hour already. So it's like,
How's it going?
Just a couple of chatty Cathys over there.
yeah, I can't do the, hey, how's it going, guys? Because I know the answer already. So
Sure.
yeah, but Zach, you're joining us
doing
now.
extremely well. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome. So I guess, Zach, I could ask you, how are you doing?
Doing good.
Awesome. Great to hear that. Are you guys excited to hop in the Wayback Machine today?
I am. Hopefully James has a 2008 refresher for us.
I do. Yes. I actually
I love
remembered to put it together about 2 hours ago. I was like, oh, crap. I was like throwing my list together at the last minute because I watched like 2 movies this week that may have made the list type of thing. And then I was like, oh, wait, I have a lot more work to do on this one. More than I normally do. But yeah, we're going to talk Forgotten Films of 2008. Which is exciting. This is a series I always love doing with you guys.
Ditto.
It's one of my favorites.
Fun one.
We don't do it enough. In fact, the last time we did it was a year ago this month.
Interesting. Okay.
It's been a year. Last time we did it was episode 545 when we did the top 10 forgotten films of 2007. So
It feels
I think-
so quaint.
I feel like we've slowed down a little bit because we started in 1990 and we're realizing that this series is either going to come to an end or have to pivot fairly soon because we're getting into the realm of like movies we've talked about in the podcast era. We're 6 years away from that. So actually
Yeah,
more
that-
like 5 years because we started it January 2014. So the 2013 movies are the ones we've talked about a lot. So I don't know.
Yeah, there is an expiration date
Yep.
on this series.
Yep. There is definitely, but it hasn't expired yet. So we're going to do that list this week. Before we jump into it, I need to remind you there's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. Go check it out there. You could also support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Support the podcast, get extra after show audio. Today, Kyle and I, we already recorded it. We talked about the top 10 films of 2008 by worldwide box office, which are films that will not be on the list that we talk about today because obviously they're not forgotten if they're in the top 10 worldwide box office gross. So,
Though, as we pointed out, some of those movies are kind of forgotten, though.
right. Which at least 2 we said, and we'll go over those in a minute real quick. And I'm wondering if Zach can guess which 2 we think are forgotten. You could also leave us an Apple podcast review, 5 stars only. We'd appreciate that. And that always helps. Or send us an email to heyguys@cinereelists.com, REEL with an S on the end. Send a comment, a question, a list suggestion, a movie suggestion, any of those kinds of things. And we will discuss it on the podcast. All right. Let's get into 2008. We're going to run down the forgotten films of that year. But before we do that, it's time to set the stage for 2008. Not that long ago, 15 years ago, right? It's not too long ago.
No.
Yesterday, I taught my son Star Wars collectible card game, which is a game I used to play 25 years ago.
I remember
so-
that. Yeah, I remember that game. Yep.
I got an itch to play it again, and my son's really into board games and stuff like that. And I was like, do you want to learn this? Like, this is something I actually know, like, very well. I could teach you it. And he was like, yeah. So we hung out and played Star Wars for like 5 hours on Saturday. It was heaven, to be honest. I wish that was my full-time job. But it's odd that like things can just come flooding back to you from 25 years ago. Like very minute details that I have not thought about for years just flooded back in. It was wild. Anyway, hopefully this primer will do that for you. In 2008, the HTC Dream. Do you guys know what that is? Is that just mumbo jumbo to you, or what does that mean to you? What does HTC Dream
That's a
mean?
phone, isn't it?
That's a phone, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. HTC, long gone, but in early smartphone days, it was one of the leaders. The HTC Dream was the first device to use an Android operating system. That happened in 2008. Also in 2008, in phones, the Apple App Store became a thing.
I really hope
15
all
years
your
ago.
trivia is phone-related trivia.
It's not.
Okay.
Just warning you. Also in 2008, Sony's Blu-ray HD format, which was created in 2006, I believe, had about 70% of the HD market and was predicted in the media to be the winner of the HD wars. But the HD format was still around. I wonder what year they officially dropped the HD format. Probably 2009, right?
Is there a consensus on what was better, Blu-ray or HD DVD?
From what I understand, they're very similar.
Okay.
There's like very little difference between the two. I think the biggest difference is that Sony aggressively signed people to exclusive like deals so that they could only release their movies on Blu-rays. And so that kind of killed HD DVD.
They also slapped in the PlayStation 3, which is smart.
That's true as well. In 2008, Microsoft attempted to buy Yahoo for how much in billions in 2008? Closest to the pin. How much did Microsoft try to buy Yahoo for in 2008?
15 billion.
Kyle says 15.
That's a great guess. I'll say 14 billion.
Zach says 14 billion. 15 and 14. You guys are way off. The actual amount is $44 billion.
I'll take the win.
That's crazy.
The last time Yahoo was sold was in 2016 when Verizon acquired AOL and Yahoo at the same time in the same deal, paying how much in billions for both?
Probably 2.
Kyle says 2.
Half a B.
Zach says half. 9 billion.
Okay.
9 billion. It definitely went down. 8.
What's the difference between 9 billion and 40 billion?
A lot.
Twitter.
No, there's zero difference.
That is not zero difference.
Zero difference.
You're crazy.
No.
I mean, to the individual, there's nothing. To the people who are all splitting that money, I think there's a difference.
Sure. Maybe. In 2008, Bitcoin is first proposed on a news server by a developer under the name of Satoshi Nakamoto. Sure wish I was around for that, to be honest. The early days of Bitcoin.
The early days of mining them. Yep.
Could you imagine your like crappy Pentium, you're like mining Bitcoins, and then like years later it turns out to be worth millions?
Well,
I could imagine.
tens of thousands.
No,
it'd be
million. It would
millions.
be literally millions.
Well,
Like,
absolutely.
One Bitcoin is worth tens of thousands, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but you
Right,
could
but
mine
you
them
would be
so
mining
quickly
way
back
more
then.
than that.
True.
But if James had been mining Bitcoin in 2008,
Yeah,
he would be a billionaire.
Probably.
Right.
Okay,
Assuming
good
that
point.
I didn't get out of it at the wrong time.
Yeah.
If I had actually kept them. I heard a podcast with a girl who fooled around with it in the early days and mined $100 worth of Bitcoin and then forgot about it. And then years later, she bought a car with it. And like a $40,000 vehicle
Right.
off of $100 investment.
Well, she could have waited even more years.
Yep. Also in 2008, retired American football player O.J. Simpson was sentenced to 33 years in prison in relation to not a murder, but a September 2007 armed robbery. You guys remember when that happened?
Yeah,
O.J.
the-
finally
Didn't
went to jail.
Didn't he steal back his like memorabilia or something?
Yes.
Right. That wasn't his in the first place.
Right.
Yeah, and it was like in a casino hotel or something.
You're right. In a hotel room
Yeah.
at a casino. Simpson was later granted parole and released in 2017. So he didn't even do the 33 years. In 2008, Joe Biden dropped out of the running for the 2008 U.S. presidential election, and Barack Obama became the first minority president of the United States of America. Which is a
I
pretty
remember
big
that.
thing.
Yeah, I like how it's like Joe Biden and Barack Obama. Wasn't the big contest between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama?
Yes, they were the two front runners.
They were the two front runners at the end of it?
Yes.
Interesting.
So it was more of Hillary dropping out to make
Wherever I
Obama be
copy
nominated.
pasted that, evidently they're anti-Hillary because they've erased her from the history books. In 2008, a leaked video of Fox News Channel anchor Bill O'Reilly from the early 1990s was released of him freaking out on camera, saying the words, "What?"
F it, we'll do it live.
Right.
That's 15 years old.
That's 15. Well,
I mean,
the video
leak
hit
was
the
15
internet
years.
15 years ago.
Really? Wow.
I think the video itself is from the 90s.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had asked me when that video was released, I would have said like, I don't know, 8 years ago.
Right. No, 15 years ago.
15. Wow.
In 2008, in movies, actor Heath Ledger was found dead in his home in New York due to a bad cocktail of prescription drugs.
Is this a trivia question you're asking us?
No, I'm telling you,
okay.
that's what happened.
Okay.
How old was Heath Ledger?
There it is. There's a trivia question.
Was it an accidental death or was it a suicide?
I believe it's accidental. I mean, they've never said it's a suicide.
Okay.
It was an overdose.
Right. But I
Right.
don't think it was like, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to take so much. I think it was like he had multiple types of pills. He took too much of those in combination, which caused a reaction that made him overdose. I mean, from what I understand, based on a documentary I watched, there's no proof that it was a suicide. There's like nothing.
Or suspicion.
No.
There's nothing left behind and nothing he said that would indicate that he was suicidal.
Okay.
What age was Heath Ledger when he passed away? Is it bad form to play closest to the pin with somebody's?
I'll say
death
say
age?
he's 30.
Yeah.
Zach says 30.
I don't know why you're making this a trivia question.
I know why you think
I don't
personally.
want to answer this question.
I'm
These are
second
bad
guessing.
taste.
Zach, you get the win on this one.
I'm second guessing my entire life right now. He was 28.
Okay. Okay. All right.
He would
Good
later
job,
be
Zach.
awarded the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in his work in The Dark Knight, released in the same year. And after
See, that's
his passing.
That's a much better trivia question.
Well, you already knew the answer to that. Why am I going to ask you that? You would have gotten it right away. What award did he win? Come on. Other notable deaths in 2008 include Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
Oh, he's dead?
Sidney
You didn't know he's
Pollack.
dead?
Sidney Pollack,
Okay.
great director.
The artist?
George Carlin, the comedian.
Yep.
Bernie Mac. Do you remember that one? That one was kind of a surprise.
Yeah, I do remember that one. Do we know what happened? Was that like a heart attack? Was that health related?
I believe it was a heart attack, but I don't.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure there was no like foul play involved. I think it was like
Okay.
a surprise health thing. Paul Newman.
Yep.
Roy
Salsa guy?
Scheider.
Yep.
Right. Roy Scheider. And Michael Crichton, author of Jurassic Park and director of a couple of movies.
Yeah, he died early, didn't he?
I forgot he was dead.
I mean, fairly early. I think he was an older gentleman, but not like in his 70s. I think he was maybe in his 60s at the time, early 60s. Am I wrong? Somebody look it up.
I don't know.
He was
Zach,
directing movies in the 70s, so
Zach, you look it up and have me and James guess how old he was when he died.
He was 66.
66. Okay. That's on the early side.
He was born during World War II.
it's on the early side, but it's not like crazy early. He's in
Yeah,
retirement age. You know what I mean? It's not like he was 28.
That's
He was
true.
Heath Ledger. Iron Man, directed by Jon Favreau, was released by Marvel Studios and was the first film in the record-breaking Marvel Cinematic Universe. That was 15 years ago. In 2008, a bunch of people debuted in film, including Jessica Chastain, her first movie, 2008. Jennifer Lawrence was in her first movie in 2008. Rooney Mara. John Oliver from the John Oliver Show. What's that show on HBO? Last Week Tonight.
Last Week Tonight. Yeah,
Right.
At that point, he was on Daily Show, I think.
His first movie, The Love Guru.
Oh. That was 2008 also?
Evidently.
I would assume that was like 2004.
Nope. Everybody thinks this person's film debut was a Scorsese movie, but it wasn't. Margot Robbie debuted in 2008.
With what?
Vigilante.
Okay.
Never heard of it.
So, who's the most famous person that debuted? Is it Jennifer Lawrence or Margot Robbie?
Well, let me keep going because there's two more, and then you can
Okay.
decide. Tessa Thompson in Make It Happen. Probably not her.
Okay.
But what about the last on the list, Chadwick Boseman?
Ooh.
I still think it's one of them.
I would put probably Margot Robbie as the most famous.
Over Jennifer Lawrence? She was so, I mean, maybe not in
you
this
just
very
used the
moment.
word was. You just used the word was right there. So yes, by the fact you said was.
I'm talking about Jennifer Lawrence at her height
Mm-hmm.
was more famous than Margot Robbie is right now, which is arguably
Mm.
Margot Robbie's height, right?
That might not be true.
I think
Did-
Margot Robbie's still on the rise here.
Did Barbie?
Right, but we're
get
not
a
talking
bigger
the most
box
famous in a
office?
year. We're talking about most famous at their height, right?
Hold on. Let's talk about height.
Okay.
Did more people see Barbie than saw Jennifer Lawrence at her height?
The Hunger Games,
Yeah.
a lot of people saw Barbie. I'll give you that. But if you combined all the Hunger Game movies, guaranteed it's beating Barbie.
But it's the same people seeing each movie.
I'm saying she was incredibly popular with like a series. She headlined a series, which might happen with Barbie too. We don't know. But as it currently stands, I think Margot Robbie was famous, certainly, but not like Jennifer Lawrence famous until Barbie.
Yeah. Do you know what Hunger Games made in box office?
No. Not off the top of my head.
Almost 700 million.
Right.
Barbie hit a B.
That doesn't make Margot Robbie more famous. People aren't going to that movie because Margot Robbie's in it.
They aren't? That's not a major reason?
I think maybe some people are. And I think it's a reason.
The main reason people are going to Hunger Games is because they read the book. It's not Jennifer Lawrence.
It became Jennifer Lawrence, though.
So Hunger Games made Jennifer Lawrence a star,
Yes.
but Margot Robbie's already like Barbie's not making Margot Robbie a star.
Margot
Yeah,
Robbie
she's already a
was
star.
a star before Barbie. I'll agree with that. But she was
Yeah.
not a put this person in your franchise and you're guaranteed money star.
Yeah, that's right. She never did Harley Quinn, and no one watches those movies.
All right, fine. Harley Quinn. I still think Jennifer Lawrence. I think Jennifer Lawrence, if you put her picture and Margot Robbie's picture in front of 100 people and say, who out of these two people do you recognize? Jennifer Lawrence, her name gets said first more times than not. They might be able to say both,
Yeah.
but they're going to say Jennifer Lawrence first. Would you agree with that, Kyle?
I think I mean, didn't they both have a movie come out like within a month of each other just recently?
Yeah, No
Is that-
Hard Feelings didn't do quite as well as Barbie.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean Jennifer Lawrence is not incredibly famous and recognizable.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Will Smith comes out with movies that don't do well as well, and he's still incredibly famous, no matter what he's
Sure.
done in the last 5 years.
Oh, sure.
Whereas Margot Robbie, before Barbie,
Again, what do you mean before Barbie? Like, this is not some star-making movie for Margot Robbie. Like,
I think it is.
No, people were well aware of Margot Robbie before this movie.
Yeah, you had I mean, I would say Focus or Wolf of Wall Street. Those were star-making movies for her. That's what got her on the map, and people said, "Oh, we should pay attention."
And
to her.
Suicide Squad.
Right, and Suicide Squad with Harley Quinn. Yeah,
I think those are all great movies, and I don't think Suicide Squad is a great movie. I think Suicide Squad was a movie a lot of people saw. I think, yes, she's an element of those movies, but I don't think people went to those movies to see Margot Robbie.
no, because they didn't know who she was. That's what I'm saying. That's why they're star-making movies. They didn't know who she was. They saw those movies and said, "Oh, who is this person?"
I gotta see Barbie because Margot Robbie's in it. Nobody said that.
No, but like okay. James, you're skipping like 10 years of movies here. They didn't go see Wolf of Wall Street a decade ago. They said, "I gotta go see her and Barbie." Like, they went to Wolf of Wall Street because it's Leonardo DiCaprio or it's Martin Scorsese.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got Margot Robbie and said, "Oh, this person's interesting." And then they saw her again in Focus with Will Smith. And
They
now
did.
like,
Nobody
okay,
saw Focus.
a
That's
lot
not
of
a
people
big
saw
deal.
Focus.
What's a lot?
I don't know. $500 million worth of people saw Focus.
I don't think 500 million people, $500 million worth saw Focus. Can somebody please look this up? Zach,
What's the
please.
worldwide?
It's not $500 million, guaranteed.
Yeah.
There's not a chance.
No, because Hunger Games was almost 700.
Will Smith sells tickets.
He does, but not to Focus. That was not like a big hit for him.
That was a
It's
good
too
movie,
bad. It
though.
was underrated film.
Yeah.
I believe it's also underrated, but not huge. Not hugely
Okay,
financially
So
successful.
James thinks Jennifer Lawrence is more famous. Kyle thinks Margot Robbie is more famous.
Correct. Yes.
I'll be the tiebreaker and say Margot Robbie.
All right.
You guys are insane.
Oh, we're insane. Like
Yeah.
it's not even a question. Like James,
No,
you think
it's not
like
even a question in my
It's
mind.
not even close. It's not even close. Jennifer Lawrence, what was the last big thing she was in?
Joy.
Sure, maybe Joy.
Was that her last big thing?
Yeah.
No, I mean, honestly, I think maybe Passengers
Made more money than Focus.
was her last big thing. And that was 2016.
Okay.
I'm not
so,
looking at her filmography, but I could probably come up with one.
Whereas compared to Margot Robbie, who literally is the biggest thing in Hollywood at the moment. Right?
Because she's associated with a big movie. Not because people were like wowed by her performance in Barbie. She was fine in Barbie. I'm not saying there was an issue with her performance. I'm just saying like it's not like people were like they came out of Barbie and they're like, we got to talk about Margot Robbie. She was amazing in this. People didn't say that because it was more about the package of Barbie. If anything, they said that about Ryan Gosling, right? That name constantly came up when talking about Barbie.
I love that you think she's incidental to that movie.
Right.
I'm not saying
like-
she's incidental. I'm saying I don't think the success of Barbie guarantees that if you put Margot Robbie in your movie, it's going to be successful financially.
If there's, I'm just saying, if there's like a star meter somewhere,
Mhm.
Margot Robbie is currently probably at the top of it.
She's very high. I agree. But
All right,
not as high as Jennifer Lawrence at her peak.
To go back just a little bit, Amy Schumer.
She's number 2 on the star meter under Paul Rubens.
Paul
Wait.
Rubens, a guy you really want to put in your movies in the last 20 years.
Jennifer
What is a
Lawrence
star
is
meter?
90. Jennifer Lawrence is 92 on the list of most popular celebrities.
Rest in
as
peace, Paul
determined-
Rubens, by the way. I don't mean to slag his name, but come on, what are we talking about here?
Can we pour out a Pee Wee laugh for Paul Rubens here?
Yes.
A moment of silence, please.
A moment of silence with a
The Pee Wee
soundbite.
laugh. Yes.
We're going to let it play. Normally, I don't let it play completely. We're going to do it today. Ready?
Let's go.
Rest in peace, Pee Wee.
Thank you, Paul.
It actually did affect me when I heard that he passed away. Like, it didn't like ruin my day or anything, but I was like, more than a typical celebrity passing. I was like, man, that's a bummer. I think he got it like kind of the short end of the straw from the Hollywood world, maybe.
Yeah, definitely a scandal that overshadowed his career. That was probably not as big of a scandal as people made it out to be.
Right. Yeah. You know what's odd is like my mom texted me when Paul Rubens passed away. Like when she got the news, she texted me and she's like, "Sorry." I was like, it's just weird. She's never done that for any other celebrity. Do you guys like? What do you think of that? Why do you think she did that?
My mom did the same thing. I think it's because
For
I
Paul
don't know about
Rubens?
your. Yeah, I don't know about your mom. My
Interesting.
mom used to watch Pee-wee's Playhouse with me. Like,
Okay.
it was one of the few kids shows that she enjoyed. So I think she had positive memories of Paul Rubens and Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Maybe my mom does too. I mean, I never really thought about it. We definitely didn't sit down and watch Pee-wee's Playhouse as a family, but she knew that I watched it.
Yeah.
And like didn't discourage it. I think I was out of Pee-wee by the time he had his controversy, so that didn't really matter either in the moment. But I don't know. What are we supposed to be talking about?
I don't know, James.
2008.
All right,
Thank you for listening.
finishing up setting the stage for 2008. We got music. Zach's favorite topic. According to Billboard, the #1 album of 2008 was The Fame by what artist? The album name is The Fame. It was the best-selling album of 2008 by
Black
what
Eyed
artist?
Peas.
Kyle says Black Eyed Peas.
It's not
Zach,
them. It's not them.
Can you make an
No idea.
Can you make an uneducated guess?
The Fray.
Not The Fray. Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga. Yeah.
Lady Gaga.
okay.
The #1 song in America was Low by what artist? Get Low, I think, is the phrase in the song. The name of the song is Low.
It's not Little John's Get Low came out in the early before that. So this
Little
is not-
John's Get Low?
Yeah. To the window, to the wall, that one.
Right. You think Little John did that song?
No, what's his name? I can't think of his name right now.
Is it Lil Wayne?
No,
It's
not Little Wayne.
Lil Wayne. This is
Yeah, the
Lil Bow
Yeah
Wow?
guy. What's
Nope.
his name? Anyway, but the song you're talking about, Low, is not.
You're thinking of T-Pain.
No, I'm not thinking of T-Pain. No,
Well,
no,
that's
no.
who did Low.
No, that was not T-Pain.
And the
T-Pain.
person singing the lyrics was
No. It's Little John. Get Low, song by Little John and the East Side Boys. not T-Pain.
maybe I'm confusing the song then.
Yeah, you are confusing the song.
All right. Well, this song
Thank
named
you.
Low is T-Pain featuring Flo Rida.
Oh, this is Applebot and Jeans and the Boots with the Fur song.
Right.
Okay.
Get low,
Yeah,
get
yeah,
low,
yeah.
get low.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's Shorty Got Low, 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 Low.
Okay. Yeah.
Get Low, Get Low, Get Low is a Little John song from the earlier 2000s. I am schooling James on music right now, and I feel very awesome about it.
Yes, you really should. Because
Typical like cool guy band teacher, you know what I mean?
thank you for correcting me.
There was
Um,
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Moving into 2008 and film, let's talk the movies that we can't talk about in our forgotten films. What's the one rule we have for a forgotten films list, Zach?
Can't be top 10 box office for the year.
Right. That means the following films will not be on our list. We're not allowed to talk about them. Number 10, and Zach, which of these two do Kyle and I think are actually forgotten, even though they're top 10 box office? The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian, Wall-E, Iron Man, Quantum of Solace, Madagascar 2, Escape to Africa, Mamma Mia, Hancock, Kung Fu Panda, a theoretical Indiana Jones movie, and The Dark Knight.
Maybe you thought Hancock was
That's one of them.
forgotten.
That's one of them. Yep.
What was the other one that
Yeah,
we thought was forgotten?
Perhaps Narnia?
That was the other
Correct.
one.
Yep.
Those were the two where we were like, nobody talks about those two movies.
Isn't that going to be the next project of
Greta Gerwig.
Greta Gerwig? Yes. Yes, it is.
So I already gave my hot take on that in the after show, which we recorded before this. So what's your
Okay.
hot take on that, Zach?
I really did not care for the
Last one.
that run of those movies.
Mhm.
Man, there's a certain quality of movies that has British kids at the forefront that like tends to just be so schmaltzy, I guess. I don't know. I think she can make a competent movie. Her Little Woman was awesome, so I'm all about her. If anyone's going to do it, I think she'll do a great job.
Nice. I think she'll do a great job too. My take was the woke Barbie movie. Like the director of that is now going to direct a movie with like Christian undertones, and I'm more interested in like how people react to her movie and the idea of her making it versus
interesting
versus any question in my mind that she'll make something that's interesting to watch, because I think she's going to do that.
I don't think there was anything in the Barbie movie that would clash with like Christian values in a Narnia movie.
No, just the anti-woke crowd in general.
Right.
So like a more politically conservative crowd reacting to a director who made a less conservative film. Is that the idea?
Yes.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep. But I think she'll be pretty faithful in an interesting way, because that's what she did with Little Women, something that's been adapted to death, and yet she made her own version of it. That
Right.
was interesting. So hopefully that's what it ends up being. All right. Let's get into our top 10 forgotten films of 2008. You heard the criteria. Can't be anything in the worldwide top 10. We also kind of loosely make a rule that is unenforceable, but we keep it in mind as we make these lists. And that rule is, if it's not forgotten on the podcast or not forgotten to ourselves, it also doesn't make the list. So I intentionally left movies out that I've mentioned over and over and over that maybe other people have never heard of or only know because I always bring it up. So I since this year is getting closer and closer to when the podcast existed, there were a lot of movies that most people have never heard of or would think of as forgotten that did not make my list, that would have, just because I bring up Blindness all the time. And so I don't need to put it on this list. So.
Right.
Yeah. But it truly is a forgotten film. It deserves to be on a list like this. It's just, if you listen to this show, you know James likes this movie a lot.
So I have a short list of movies that I didn't put on because I always mention them and other people on this podcast mention them. I won't mention them now because they might be on your list, but when we're done, literally like 5 movies that I was like, these would be on the list.
My list is how I often do this is these are all films that I really like a lot. Okay. So instead of just ranking them how much I like them, they are ranked by how forgotten I think they are. So the least forgotten is my number 10.
And I do something similar, but I like using numbers because my brain likes to work. So I have 10 movies I also like, but I rank them by number of votes they have on IMDb. So the movie with the most votes is number 10 and the least votes is number 1. So similar probably idea to what Zach is doing.
Yeah. And my number 10, it is a movie that I have championed on the show before, but probably not in the last 200 episodes.
Okay.
Do you want to?
So I think
let's hear it. Go for it.
Yeah. Hop in.
Probably the least forgotten.
Wait. Hold on.
Let's rank some movies.
Okay, go ahead.
Still forgotten and criminally underrated. It's 2008's Jumper.
I knew this was going to be on your list.
Yeah, by Doug Liman.
Yep.
I am a huge fan of this movie. I think this is a really good movie. A lot of fun. It stars Hayden Christensen and Samuel L. Jackson. And he has the ability to instantly teleport wherever he wants, which admittedly is like wish fulfillment on my part to watch this, because this is absolutely the superpower that I would pick. But I think it is a fun adventure movie where he is teleporting all over the place. It kind of was set up like the start of a franchise. It did not inspire sequels, but yeah, I'm a big fan of Jumper. I don't feel like this is a movie that, like, if you're 17 right now, that you've heard of. So I'm going to call it forgotten.
It's not a movie that gets talked about ever outside this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
No. And the only reason I know about this movie is because of Zach. I watched this a couple of years ago, and it's fun. It's well directed. The plot's kind of dumb, and I can see why they did not make another one of these. But
it's directed by the guy who eventually did Live, Die, Repeat, right?
Yeah. No, yeah. It's like there is fun to be had in this movie. So I can totally see why Zach likes this movie. It's not like, so I didn't watch it and think, this turd? Like, I see why Zach likes it. I also think there's a lot of cracks in the movie too. But when you like something, sometimes you overlook the cracks.
Yeah. I think part of the reason why people in general didn't love it is because of Hayden Christensen. And this was what he was making after, the prequels.
Yep.
And I think that the hate of him from the prequels was fresh in people's mind when they saw this. And I didn't have that baggage because I didn't care about the prequels, like one way or the other. And I had seen him fresh off of Shattered Glass, which is amazing. And he's incredible in it. And so that I didn't have that baggage, I guess.
I just saw Gran Turismo last night, and it has Legolas from Lord of the Rings in it.
Orlando Bloom.
Orlando.
Yeah, Orlando Bloom. And like about halfway through the movie, I was like, why isn't Orlando Bloom in more movies? Like, he's really good. He's one of the better things about Gran Turismo, I would say. And I was like, man, this guy probably got screwed by being Legolas, like in the long run, because he should be in more things, I guess is what I'm saying. He was great. I'm going to go next. Awesome. My number 10 is a movie. It's actually two movies. It's a little bit of a cheat, but they came out in the same year, and one's a sequel to the other one.
All these movies came out the same year, James.
I'm saying both of these movies, which are a part of a series, came out in the same year, which doesn't happen all that often. Mesrine, Killer Instinct, and Mesrine, Public Enemy Number 1 is a two-part movie that came out in France, starring Vincent Cassel. And he plays a gangster, it's based on a true story. A guy named Jacques, or is it just Jacques? Jacques. Jacques Mesrine, who was like a famous gangster, I believe in the 80s, the 70s, 60s and 70s. And he's like he's a bad dude. Like you could compare this movie to like a French Scarface, like a really long 4 hours French Scarface. If you watch them back to back, it's like 4 hours. And it's really good. It's in French, so you got to read subtitles. And it plays a little more like a mini series in that it's 4 hours long. So there's probably some details in here that if you were trying to make like a tight 2 hour movie out of this story, you would have cut. But Vincent Cassel is good, and the filmmaking is really good and believable. And I enjoyed the ride of going along. You kind of meet this guy when he's just getting into crime, and by the end of it, he's like already broken out of prison twice in the movie. So he's like, you get to see his crimes, you get to see him arrested, tried, go to prison, break out, get caught again, break. You know what I mean? It's like just this big epic crime story. And I enjoyed it. And if you're into those types of things, check it out. My number 10, Mesrine 1 and 2.
James, that's an excellent sub for my number 10 because it is a similar thematic movie, also about a career criminal. And this is Bronson, directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, starring Tom Hardy. This movie is, I think it's loosely based on an actual person. There was a famous British prisoner, I believe named Charles Bronson, who would basically just wanted to be in jail, would rather be in jail than live in the real world, and would find ways to get back into jail. And Tom Hardy plays a fictionalized version of this man who is obsessed with being in jail. He gets into fights in jail just to stay in there, and eventually kind of forms this whole alter ego while he is in the prison system. I hate to use this word, but this movie is Kubrickian at times. It almost reminds me of Clockwork Orange and the places it goes, and just sort of how this man is obsessed with violence. But it's a great Tom Hardy performance, really good directing from Nicholas Winding Refn, and a movie that surprised me. It's nice to find movies that you don't know you're going to like, and then you find something that's really, really good. So this is not a top 100 for me, but I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's a movie that I will champion.
What's it titled?
It's called Bronson.
Oh, yes.
Yep. And it has 137,000 checks on IMDb.
Nice. My number 9 is The Brothers Bloom by Ryan Johnson. And I think it's forgotten because certainly of Ryan Johnson's filmography, this is the last one that might get mentioned. But I think it's a worthy addition to his canon. I enjoy this movie. I think it has a fun sensibility and really strong performances by Rachel Weisz. Also has Adrian Brody, Mark Ruffalo, Ricky Jay is in it, and like literally, I've never not enjoyed Ricky Jay in anything he's ever been in. I need more Ricky Jay. I mean, I think he passed away, but I love Ricky Jay in movies.
I don't know who Ricky Jay is. The magician?
The magician, yeah.
Okay.
He pops in things like P.T. Anderson films and yeah, he pops into things, but I really enjoy Ricky Jay. And he's an incredible magician as well. Yeah, Brothers Bloom. It's a fun kind of like one last big heist con against a rich heiress, and then the main character Brody falls in love with her, kind of a thing. So it complicates things, and I don't know. It's just a very twisty, fun, light kind of con man movie, and I think it's great. So Brothers Bloom.
Zach, Ricky Jay is going to pop up on another movie on my list, which is probably on your list too.
It is.
Yeah, I just clicked on this picture. I'm like, oh, I just saw this guy.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, he's great.
I don't even recognize him, so I'm curious to know the movie. I've seen The Brothers Bloom. I just don't remember him in it.
Well, he's the narrator, so he's not in it.
Oh, okay. His face is not in it.
Yeah, he's got a really recognizable voice, but he's been in Magnolia, Boogie Nights, all sorts of things. But yeah, I mean, I know him as a magician, and then I'm excited when I see him in things.
Cool. My number 9 is a film titled Trans-Siberian. This is a movie that stars Woody Harrelson, Emily Mortimer, and Ben Kingsley, amongst others. And it's just kind of like a twisty thriller on a train about a couple who befriend another couple on this train as they like travel across the Trans-Siberian countryside, or they take a train across the Siberian countryside. And the couple, you know, they're just like passing time with this couple, like getting to know them, and they're like fellow, you know, American travelers in this foreign land. And then Ben Kingsley comes into the picture, and it's like it brings up questions about who this couple actually is. You know what I mean? Something that's like super innocent and normal turns into like, maybe we don't want to be associated with these people. And then other twists happen, and it's one of those movies that like I think got generally ignored. I don't even know if it had a wide release that year. I think it's with a major studio. I don't really even remember. I don't remember it even coming out in theaters. I had just seen it around and hadn't watched it. And then one day I did, probably because Woody Harrelson's in the movie. And I was like, that was a fun little adventure thriller in a setting that I'm not used to. And I liked it quite a bit. And that's why it has stuck in my brain as a worthy forgotten gem from that year.
Nice. This movie stars Emily Mortimer, who's also in another movie. It's going to pop up. So I'm just curious to see how many crossover actors and actresses we have between all these movies.
Sure.
My number 9, which has 94,000 votes on IMDb, is Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. This stars Michael Cera and Kat Dennings. Michael Cera and Kat Dennings play, I believe, high school students in this movie, who are both getting over a breakup and happen to be out on the streets in New York at the same time, going to the same clubs, and keep running into each other. And they just have this amazing nights together as they're traveling from underground club to underground club and having these adventures together. It's all very focused in the music too. I don't want to call it hipster music, but it's definitely like, you know, not mainstream music that they're into. And Michael Cera and Kat Dennings have great chemistry between each other. And this is a fun, I don't want to call it, I guess it's rom-com-ish, but it seems a little bit more serious than that. It's a really fun movie, though. It's a movie that I've watched a couple times and I've always enjoyed.
Nice.
Great. Yeah. My number 8 is Rachel Getting Married. And I feel like, if you asked me 5 years after this came out, is this a forgotten film? I would say no. But by now, I would say yes, because I just don't feel like anyone's talking about this film. And if we're going by Kyle's numbers, it only has 50,000 ratings on IMDb, which surprised me. But it's directed by Jonathan Demme, and it's written by Jenny Lumet, and it stars Anne Hathaway as like a drug addict who's clean, and then she gets released from this like rehab place that she's been in to go to, I think, her sister's wedding.
Yep.
And the whole thing is shot very kind of like cinema verite. The whole movie is so raw and like I don't know, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember thinking like this is just a lot of really strong, powerful acting with like fly on the wall filmmaking, and that combination was really great.
Nice.
So it's Rachel Getting Married.
My number 8 is The Whackness. Which, if you guys are going to read IMDb, this one only has 31K.
Nice.
I don't feel there's a lot of people watching this, but it's a good one. The Whackness is kind of set in the 90s. And so in 2008, it's like the first movie I saw that kind of has like a nostalgia for the 90s for some reason. So I like that element of it. It's also kind of like a hangout movie with a kid in New York, or a young person. I don't know if he's a kid, but and he's a little bit of a hustler, so much so that like he like sells weed to his psychologist and stuff like that. And it's kind of a hangout movie with some light drama and a lot of 90s nostalgia bait, but good, like earned stuff. And the movie stars Josh Peck, who I think was like a Disney star in the 90s or early 2000s. Ben Kingsley, another Ben Kingsley movie, back to back. Olivia Thirlby, Vera Farmiga. How do you?
Farmiga?
Yeah. Was it Vera?
No, it's Famke Jensen.
Famke Jensen. I get them confused. And Method Man.
Samsonite.
Don't remember Method Man in the movie, but evidently he's in there. But this is a good one. If you want to see a movie that kind of feels like Kids, but like way safer for some reason, Kids and The Whackness, like The Whackness is like the light version of Kids, where it's just like, young people in a very urban environment living a completely different life than what I did at their age, for sure. I guess those exist in my brain in the same place. I'm sure people who have seen both are like, what is he talking about? They're not anything alike. But for some reason, the setting and some of the attitudes feel similar to me. Also directed by Jonathan Levine, who went on to direct a lot of things I like from the time, like 50/50 is a favorite of mine. The most recent is The Long Shot, another movie from Seth Rogen that Jonathan Levine collaborated on or directed. So he makes good comedies, and I think The Whackness has a comedic element certainly to it, but it's more like dramedy, and I enjoyed it and think people should check it out. My number 8.
Well, I cannot find a connection between The Whackness and my number 8. However, The Whackness and my number 9 share Aaron Yu as actors. So,
okay.
Fun fact, Aaron Yu. My number 8, however, is a Michel Gondry film called Be Kind, Rewind. This movie stars Jack Black and Mos Def the Rapper. They work in a video rental store that rents tapes, which is kind of dates the movie already. And through a weird accident, every tape gets erased in the store. And Jack Black and Mos Def set out to recreate all the famous films that were erased, DIY style. And really the fun of this movie is watching them recreate famous movie scenes with found objects and mediocre acting. And just the heart and passion that they put into it is pretty great. And this being Michel Gondry, it's framed with a lot of playfulness, and it's just a really fun and charming film to watch.
Yeah, I love that film. That's a great film.
Yeah.
My number 7 has already been mentioned. It's Bronson. I agree with everything that Kyle said. It's a brutal movie, but Tom Hardy is so good. He's such a good actor, but he's great in this. And Nicholas Winding Refn is such an interesting director. And this movie kind of like bounces back and forth between really violent stuff and then like, surrealist kind of stuff. It's really interesting and brutal. And I think it's definitely not, it's forgotten, but it's a really interesting, good movie. So Bronson, my number 7.
Zach, do you remember when I sent you the picture of the grocery store worker who I thought looked like Tom Hardy from Bronson?
Yeah.
James, do you know this story?
No.
So I used to, when my son was first born, I'd take him to the grocery store at like 6 a.m. on Sundays because he was awake and we needed to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a guy who was always stocking chips who looked like Tom Hardy for Bronson. Like he was bald headed, had a mustache, super muscular and tattooed. And I remember telling Zach, like every time I go, like, oh, Bronson's here. And then one day Zach's like, you need a picture of this guy. So I went up to this guy after like weeks and asked for a picture with him. And we took a picture together. And like, it turned out his name was Kyle also. And he was really cool about it. And then the next time I went to the grocery store, he was super weird every time I walked by him. So
yeah,
whatever.
Because you asked for a photo. Did you explain to him why you wanted the photo?
Yeah, I explained to him why, and I showed him a picture of Tom Hardy and Bronson. And he's like, oh yeah, I see the resemblance. So like the interaction was super cool. And then after that, it was super uncool. So I don't know what happens, but
maybe he went home and watched the movie and was like, I don't like this
guy. Yeah, who knows?
He did not go home and watch the movie.
What do you mean? You don't know that. What else
He
would
went
have
home
changed
and
it?
checked out Bronson.
What else would have changed his attitude about the interaction?
He played it off in the moment, but it was always weird, and he was hoping to never see you again.
I agree with Zach.
Okay.
He swayed me. That's what it is.
So he was being cool, but really deep down, he was not cool with it.
Or he was shocked by it, and it took till later when he could actually get some perspective on it, where he was like, that's actually weird.
So, some random customer with a 6-month-old came up to me and asked for my picture.
That's one thing to be like, you look like the guy from this movie Bronson. That's one thing. It's another thing to be like, and I want a photo with you. That's a little strange, maybe.
Well, if the photo's on my phone somewhere, if I can find it, I'll send it out.
That's even weirder. Leave the guy alone, Kyle.
I'll send it to you, James. I'm not gonna send it to like
we're
Discord
not posting
or
it
anything.
online.
No, I'm not gonna post it online. No.
All right. My number 7 is a comedy titled The House Bunny. I like The House Bunny. I've only seen it once, and it's been 15 years, so maybe it wouldn't hold up. I don't know. But The House Bunny is a movie starring Anna Faris. It also has Colin Hanks in it, which is an actor I like, and Emma Stone, another actor that I like. And it's a Happy Madison movie, so produced by Adam Sandler's Shingle. Is that what they call it in old Hollywood speak? Didn't they call them shingles back in the day?
Wait, what's a shingle?
A shingle is like a studio, a production studio.
I've
Right?
never heard that term before.
I've never heard that in my life.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think it's old Hollywood speak, like from the 50s.
You're the expert on
I
old
don't know.
Hollywood, so
Anyway, this is definitely Anna Faris in like an Anna Faris movie, and there's not too many Anna Faris movies out there. Like Scary Movie, she's certainly in it, but like The Draw, much like Barbie, The Draw is the IP and not the lead actor. But in this movie, she's front and center. The story is about her. She plays a Playboy playmate who gets kicked out of the whatever Hugh Hefner's house was called. I
The
forget.
Playboy Mansion.
The Playboy Mansion. She gets kicked out of the Playboy Mansion, and she's lived there so long she like doesn't know how to find a place to live. And she kind of like falls into this job as the house mother for a sorority full of awkward girls. And so she, as a playmate who is attractive and is very girly, teaches them the way to be attractive and girly, but also learns from them that like she shouldn't base her entire existence on the way she looks or what other people think of her, particularly men. And so it's a comedy of errors, you know, it's a goof off. There's not meant to be taken too seriously, but I found it to be fun and delightful and not really as crass as it probably could have been given the premise. But if you enjoy Anna Faris, if you enjoy movies like Legally Blonde, then you should definitely check out a movie like The House Bunny, which was generally ignored on release. My number 7.
Did you mention that Emma Stone is in this?
I did. Emma Stone is in this. Yeah, there's other reasons to see it other than if you just want a funny movie in the same vein as like the Legally Blonde movies. This is one of those.
All right. I'm probably not going to check it out because I'm sure it's not aged well, but I bet you if you saw it in the time, it was probably very funny.
I couldn't tell you. I haven't seen
All
it
right.
since then.
Well, you can tell me then. When you saw it at the time, was it funny?
It's got yes.
Yeah,
In
there
my
you go.
mind, it was Kat
Okay.
Dennings, Catherine McPhee. Remember her?
Yep.
Beverly D'Angelo, amongst others. There's a ton of cameos in it too.
All right. My number 7 with 66,000 IMDb votes is Punisher: Warzone. This is a Punisher movie starring Ray Stevenson as the Punisher, and then Dominic West plays Jigsaw. This is what the Punisher movies should be, where it's just ultra violent and creative kills, because that's what the Punisher is about. He's a violent guy. He uses violence to solve his problems. In this movie, I don't even remember the plot of it. I just know that it is a super fun movie to watch where it kind of goes over the top with it. Ray Winstone as the Punisher is hunting down the Jigsaw because of whatever reasons the Punisher hunts people down. The Jigsaw has recruited a bunch of goons to his army, including some parkour goons who like every time they come on screen are doing like parkour flips, and the movie has a great way of handling them. It's one of the best scenes in the movie. It's just super fun, and this movie really reminds me of the PlayStation 2 Punisher game that came out. Because when that game came out, it was all about you could do these environmental kills where if you're in like a museum and there's like a rhinoceros tusk or something, you could like kill a goon on the rhinoceros tusk. And this movie felt like, let's make a video game movie form where what fun ways can we have the Punisher dispatch all these various goons. I think this movie is very underrated, probably because it's not, a big studio movie, and because it does have kind of like a digital 2000s look to it, but it's super fun if you don't mind excessive violence.
Sweet. I have not seen that.
I think you should, Zach.
I think I should.
I think you should.
You're
I've got
crazy.
to.
You don't think Zach's gonna like it?
No, I think he'll find things to enjoy, but I think he probably has higher priorities than Punisher Warzone.
I haven't seen Punisher.
It doesn't
you do
matter.
not need to see Punisher.
They changed the
Yeah.
actor, they changed the storyline, they practically
Okay.
rebooted it.
This has nothing to do with the Thomas Jane Punisher at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. My number 6 is a documentary called Not Quite Hollywood: The Wild Untold Story of Ozploitation. James, have you seen this?
Oh yeah,
It's so good.
I liked it a lot.
It's really great. It's a documentary about Ozploitation movies, which are exploitation movies from Australia. Okay, so it's a very specific niche of film, and this documentary is so fast paced and just like irreverent. It's wonderful. It's so much fun to watch. Now, I've never seen an Ozploitation film.
I was wondering if that, if you give me an example of one.
I haven't.
Okay.
Although
You haven't seen the original Mad Max?
I have. Okay, I'll
Okay.
take that back. I have seen that. Is that Ozploitation or just
I believe
an
the
Australian
first one
film?
is, yes, but after that, I would say no.
But this documentary is so entertaining to watch. The way it is edited is so fast paced and like just full. It is a treat. And I've checked out other documentaries by this same like team, and they're just always so much fun to watch. And yeah, so but no one has ever talked about these documentaries ever, but like Not Quite Hollywood is what it's called, and it's awesome. I definitely recommend it.
It's good. I mean, that movie motivated me to watch a couple of movies that they mentioned.
Nice. Yeah.
And generally they're worth it for the reasons they stated in the documentary and no other reasons. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. My number 6 is a movie called Doomsday. This was directed by Neil Marshall, who directed Dog Soldiers and The Descent before that, 2 genre movies that I enjoyed before Doomsday came out. This was kind of like the first movie that he got a real budget for, and he really tried to make something here. It's a post-apocalyptic film set in Scotland. Scotland is like quarantined due to a virus, and then like the government comes in to try to clear out the area because it's now been like many years that they've been quarantined. And they come in and realize there's these 2 warring gang factions, one that kind of dress up in like medieval gear, and the other one are just like scavengers. So they're not wearing like chainmail and stuff like that. They're wearing like cobbled together uniforms, or not necessarily uniforms, but costumes. Anyway, point is that there's like these 2 factions. And so now you've got the government trying to get rid of or exterminate these 2 factions inside this dystopian version of Scotland. And it's very, very intentionally reminiscent of movies like the aforementioned Mad Max, as well as like John Carpenter movies, like Escape from New York and stuff like that. It's like styled just like those movies, or like Big Trouble in Little China. And it worked for me. I enjoy the movie a lot. I have it on Blu-ray, but I haven't rewatched it yet. I remember seeing it in theaters and then seeing it a couple years after. I need to rewatch it here because it's probably been 10 years since I've seen the movie. But yeah, I like John Carpenter movies, and this is one that from day one was intended to make John Carpenter fans. Like Neil Marshall's a huge fan, and in all the press he's like, I made a John Carpenter movie. That's what I set out to do. That's what Doomsday is. And I think he did well at that. So if you like those movies and you haven't seen Doomsday, check it out.
Nice. All right, my number 6 with 52,000 IMDb votes is the aforementioned The Brothers Bloom. Yeah, I don't have a ton to add to this movie that Zach didn't say. It's a well-made con movie. I really liked both Adrian Brody and Mark Ruffalo in this. I think this movie was the first time I recognized Mark Ruffalo as being a individual. So I'm sure I'd seen him in movies before that, but had not known that, he was just a face in the crowd. This is the first time his face was a distinguishable face for me. It also put Rian Johnson on the map for me. And this is a movie that I would not have seen if Zach had not taken it to me back in 2008. We saw this in theater, if you remember correctly.
Yeah.
And Zach was like, "Hey, there's this director. I don't know if this is his first or if like you had known who Rian Johnson was." But
yeah, because of Brick.
Oh, that's right, because of Brick. Right? Yes, you wanted to see the movie from the next movie from the Brick guy. I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And I really liked this movie. So thank you, Zach, for Brothers Bloom.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
My number 5 is Red Belt by David Mamet. And I love this movie. It's in my top 100. When I watched it the first time, it instantly made my top 100. I liked everything about it, really. It just had so many moments and character pieces that I just really relished. to the point where Kyle told me he was going to watch it for the first time this week.
Nope,
And
not first time.
For the
10th time.
the second time this week. And I had to just rewatch it myself. So I rewatched it again yesterday, and it's so good. It's got a lot of things that I really enjoy. It stars Chiwetel Ejiofor and
Chiwetel Elijah
Emily-
4.
Yeah, it's Chiwetel Elijah 4. Thank you.
Emily Mortimer. Tim Allen makes an appearance. Ricky Jay obviously is in it. It's about a Brazilian jiu-jitsu trainer, and it's just great. I really, really love Red Belt. It's got 21,000 ratings on IMDb, but I think it's great.
What happened to Emily Mortimer? What's with her?
She did TV.
She went to TV.
Yeah, she definitely did TV. I don't know what she's been up to lately.
Emily Mortimer's filmography. Let's see.
She's in Mary Poppins Returns.
Yeah, she was one of the
Right.
kids. Yep.
She was in Hugo.
Relic. You guys liked Relic, or saw it at least.
Oh,
Yeah, she was
she
good
was
in Relic.
the mom in Relic.
Yeah, she was good.
That's
in Relic.
right.
Shutter Island.
Yeah.
She was in that too.
These are
I mean,
like
that's
decade-old movies, James. Like, what has she done?
2010 is certainly, but Relic was 2020.
Right. That one's recent. I'm trying. Yeah. What has she done in the last 5 years? I just want to know.
Right. Probably Relic is the most recent one. She's going to be in Paddington in Peru, which is the next Paddington movie.
Has she been in any Paddington movies?
No.
And why is Paddington going to Peru of all places?
Why not?
He's
the
already
real
been to
question.
jail.
Yeah.
Where do you go from there?
I can't wait for the next Paddington movie. It's going to be
I can
banger.
wait.
I'm neutral.
Is it the same director? Let me see. Dougal Wilson. Yep. He is not the guy who directed the first two.
Okay. Yeah, with the change of artistic vision, I just don't know if the trilogy can close out.
I agree. Might just be two and done for Paddington.
Yeah.
All right. My number 5, and we haven't discussed this. If it made somebody else's list, it's not truly forgotten, right?
No, because it's a list of someone's forgotten films.
Right. Yeah,
right. But if somebody else put that movie on their list, then obviously they didn't forget it.
But
So this has to be 10 films that were forgotten by every single person in the world except for you.
I'm just saying, if somebody else said it, then it's not forgotten anymore. I don't.
No, I think we can all enjoy the same movies and also agree that these movies are forgotten and not talked about. And maybe we happen to discuss them for the first time in this forum.
James, can you really say that if you put it on a list that you forgot it? I mean, you remembered to put it on the list.
I'm saying if somebody else made a forgotten films list and you both picked the movie, or let's say there's a movie that's on all 3 of our lists, can we say conclusively it's not forgotten if all 3 of us put it on our
No,
list?
because we are intentionally making a list of forgotten films.
Right.
But it's not forgotten if all 3 of us put it on the list. That's 3 people that when they think about forgotten films, that one comes up. That's not forgotten.
These are
No.
top 10
No
movies
longer
that
forgotten.
the other 2 guys forgot. These are like movies that culture has forgotten.
Us
We may have
3
forgotten them.
Us 3 are the sample size, right?
Yes.
We can assume
3.
that a bunch of people, when you say, what are the forgotten films of 2008? If all 3 of us picked it, then a bunch of people would pick it as the most forgotten, which means it's not forgotten.
You know what? If 3 white dudes in
No,
their 40s decide
ridiculous.
something, then it is law. I think that's how it works around here. So
Ridiculous. James, so if I haven't forgotten movies on your list, even if I didn't put them on my list, does that still count?
What?
Like, why does the fact that it's on the list? What if I've just remember the films on your list? Isn't that also mean they're not forgotten?
No, I mean, you made your list based on IMDb rankings, right?
No.
no, I did.
It's like IMDb rankings, or
Kyle
not
did.
rankings, but number of views and also personal preference, right? There's like a mixture. Going
Well,
on.
I didn't look at IMDb rating numbers.
Oh, you didn't
They-
look at it at all. I
No.
thought you
I
had
chose-
some kind of like physical metric that you helped.
That's
organize.
Kyle.
I did.
Oh, okay.
I chose 10 I liked, and then I rank them by IMDb. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Perfect.
like Bronson would probably be my number one if I was making this list by
On preference.
but that's not how I'm making my list.
Gotcha. Okay. Point being, my number 5 is Punisher: Warzone.
Yeah, see, it's still a forgotten movie. Just because
A
you and I
completely forgotten film.
have talked about it doesn't mean everyone's talking about, oh yeah, remember that Marvel movie Punisher: Warzone?
But I'm just saying, since it's on Kyle and my's list, I kind of feel like it's less forgotten than what I thought it was.
No, because you're making a forgotten
Right, that's
list.
the point
It's
of
like,
the list.
James, it's like, what if you're like a list of 10 people that no one talks about? Well, every person on your list you're going to be talking about. That would
nobody would
negate it.
talk about, because Kyle would talk about it if he was making a forgotten list. Whereas Mesrine, Trans-Siberian, The Whackness, the House Bunny, and Doomsday, all movies Kyle would have never talked about.
But I haven't forgotten about any of those.
But you also probably haven't seen any of those.
I've seen several of those.
Which ones have you seen? I'm just curious.
The House Bunny,
Okay.
The Whackness.
You don't think they're forgotten, or you don't like them enough to make a top 10 forgotten list?
No, I do think they're forgotten. I'm just saying by your metric, you're saying if any of us have remembered it, that it doesn't belong on
Remembered
the
it
list.
enough to put it on a list.
Okay, here, I'm just going to blow a hole in this. I've never seen The House Bunny, but I've heard of it, so it's not forgotten. So I don't even have to see it. And James, it's off the list.
All right. Fair enough. I agree with Kyle. Everything he said about Punisher: Warzone. If you just want to sit down and watch a comic book movie and don't need to think about 30 other comic book movies to make it make sense, then Punisher: Warzone is your movie. It's a one and done type of thing. It's a pretty simple story of revenge, and then the guy takes revenge in like interesting, actiony, violent kind of ways.
Right.
On top of that, it has an interesting visual language in that the movie is super colorful yet dark at the same time. Like the director chooses interesting angles that you would not expect in a typical action movie from the time, certainly not a comic book movie from the time. And on top of that, a lot of it is like neon soaked in darkness. Right. And so there's a little more than just action and violence going on here. There's some interesting action filmmaking as well. And Ray Stevens, I kind of equate it with Dredd. Dredd is like Dredd never shows his face in that movie. He barely even says, full sentences in that movie. And yet they made that character really cool. In Punisher: Warzone, they're like, Punisher doesn't need to talk a whole lot. He just needs to like brood and kick butt. And that's what he does in the movie. And if you're into those types of things, or you want to throw back to pre-universe comic book movies, you probably haven't seen Punisher: Warzone, and you should. My number 5.
The second best Marvel movie of 2008.
Right. The sometimes forgotten Punisher: Warzone. Moderately forgotten.
Forgot. All right. I forgot that it's my turn to go after this ridiculous conversation. My number 5, 50,000 votes on IMDb, the aforementioned Rachel Getting Married. Anne Hathaway is a tour de force in this movie, and her character just sucks the energy out of every scene she's in. Like, you can tell that the people at this wedding don't really want this person here because she's going to make everything about herself, and that's exactly what the character does. And it's a case where you're watching a great actress, or who's becoming a great actress, play a really challenging character and someone who you want to root for, and they just keep messing up. And I think those are hard roles to play and also hard roles to watch, but Anne Hathaway does an awesome job with it. This movie also, I think you kind of mentioned this, Zach, it kind of, you mentioned cinema verite, it kind of just sort of drops you in and out of scenes. So there's not always clear transitions to like what's happening. All of a sudden you're just in the middle of a conversation and then you drop out of it. And it's pretty great.
Yeah, for sure. I remember that film from my list.
Oh, well, I guess would you like to slot a new one in, Zach, since it's now not forgotten?
My number 4 is a documentary that James recommended to me called 102 Minutes That Changed America. And it is a 9/11 documentary. And the interesting thing about it is it's only from footage shot on that day, specifically at that time. So the movie is 102 minutes long, and it just cuts between different cameras that are filming at each like time, right? So like it just goes through that day, just cutting between all these different like people filming their experience during 9/11. So it's this I guess is pastiche the word to use.
A 9/11 pastiche.
Yeah. Of like what was people were experiencing as 9/11 was happening. It starts before 9/11, gets going and then goes through the whole event. It's harrowing to watch. It's really gripping, and it's really really well done. It's called 102 Minutes That Changed America.
Nice. What number are we on?
That was my number 4.
My number 4 is a movie that was recommended to me by a listener in November of 2014, titled The Black Balloon. Kimberly Santos, who probably isn't listening anymore, but if you are, shout out Kimberly for recommending The Black Balloon to me. This is an Australian dramedy starring Toni Collette, who's probably the only name you would recognize from this cast list. But it's a family comedy about these two brothers. They're both in high school. One is autistic and one is not. And the one that's not is kind of annoyed by his brother. You know what I mean? Like he likes him. He doesn't have a problem with him. It's just, he's just trying to be a high schooler. You know what I mean? Who's trying to fit in and has like his own normal high school weirdness going on. But yet he's also got his brother who's not quote unquote normal. And so he takes care of him, but also like is an angsty teenager. You know what I mean? Because he doesn't want to spend his teenage years taking care of his brother who needs things. And so there's a family dynamic going on here where the parents kind of lean on the actual younger brother of the autistic child to kind of look out for his brother. So it's a little bit coming of age, a little bit family drama. And over the course of the film, I think it's like a strong depiction of the realities of living in a family that has these challenges and the different perspectives, the father's perspective, the mother's perspective, and the son's perspective, both of the sons really. And the one son, the autistic son, you forget is like also a teenager and hitting puberty and reacting to it differently than maybe somebody who wasn't autistic when they hit puberty. And so he's acting out in ways that most people in society would not find acceptable. And the family's having to deal with that. And the brother who's not autistic is having to deal with going to school when things like that are happening. And at some point things kind of come to a head and the brother who's not autistic is like, I don't want anything to do with you. He's literally mad at his brother who is completely innocent, in this basically. And it's great. It's a great drama. It's funny. It's serious but lighthearted at the same time. Like nobody's going to die in this movie, but there are like harrowing situations where you feel for people who are in impossible situations. You know what I mean? And it's one of those where you're just kind of like, at the end of it, I was happy to spend the time with these people and see the struggles that other people might be dealing with. And it just made me thankful that like none of my family members had those challenges. Mm-hmm. And I think it gave me a perspective on things that, that made me thankful in the end that, certainly everybody has their own challenges, but that mine weren't near as difficult with my siblings. I mean, I went to high school with my sister too, and she was a cheerleader. So she was cool to hang around with. You know what I mean? I was cooler by hanging out with her, basically. She was the uncool one because I was on the debate team, which wasn't quite as cool as being a cheerleader. Shocker at my school. But Anyway, it's great and definitely underseen, and people should check it out. The Black Balloon.
Cool. Zach, did going to high school with your siblings make you cooler?
Yes.
Yeah. Because you're definitely the least cool of the four of them.
Wow. You hung out with him, Kyle. What does that say about you?
You know, you got a pity friend now and then.
Oh, so Zach was your pity friend, or you were Zach's pity friend?
I'm not sure.
Okay. All right.
I got Zach is speechless right
You
now.
guys were each other's pity friend. Let's say that.
We all thought we were doing that person a favor. That's what true friendship is.
Sure.
Zach, you're cool. Don't worry.
Thanks, Kyle.
He looked real concerned, Kyle.
All right. My number 4 is a French film called I've Loved You So Long, which translates to Il y a longtemps que je t'aime. This is directed by Philippe Claudel. The only actor you would probably recognize is Kristen Scott Thomas. In this movie, Kristen Scott Thomas plays a woman who is returning home after being in prison for 15 years, and she is adjusting to being outside of prison back with her family, while also adjusting to being around her family and dealing with the tragedy that sent her to prison in the first place. And this is a tragedy that the movie doesn't tell you right away. You kind of slowly learn the backstory. This is definitely a serious drama. I don't remember there being a lot of light moments to this movie. But it's very raw, though. It's a great performance from Kristen Scott Thomas. And it's definitely a movie that I have not forgotten. I don't know if other people have seen this movie, but there's still a moment in this movie that Megan and I quote to each other, more sarcastically than the movie handles it, but definitely a moment that we still joke about from this movie.
Sweet.
Nice.
My number 3 is my last documentary from 2008. It's called I Think We're Alone Now. Not to be confused with the Peter Dinklage film from 2018. This is the documentary from 2008. I Think We're Alone Now. And this is the story of two people, Jeff and Kelly, who are obsessed with the 80s pop singer Tiffany.
Mm.
And by obsessed, I mean like they're like they stalk her basically. Like I think one of them was like has a restraining order against him, and they're absolutely obsessed with Tiffany. They both feel like they have like a relationship with Tiffany, even though like they obviously don't know her. And so it's just this like glimpse into obsession, or the one-sided relationship that people can feel with celebrity. And I found it super, super fascinating. One guy is on the autism spectrum, and you really kind of feel for him, because he clearly is like confused about the nature of his relationship with Tiffany. The other participant is like a trans person, and it was like one of the first like trans individuals I had like seen like a documentary about, and so it was super like interesting. And I don't know anything about Tiffany, but like they know a lot about Tiffany, and so like we spent a lot of time talking about Tiffany, and it just the whole thing was I found very, very interesting. So it's my number 3 because I don't think many people remember this documentary. It has 1,600 ratings on IMDb. It's called I Think We're Alone Now.
I remember Tiffany though, so I don't know if this counts.
Yeah, it's definitely not.
And I've heard of the spectrum, so. James, what's your number 3?
It's a good one. I forgot about that documentary.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, it's forgotten film.
Well, but now you remember, right?
I do now, but not I have to put it on my list. If I had put it on my list, it wouldn't be forgotten. My number 3 is The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. You guys ever heard of this?
That's not forgotten.
What do you mean it's not
isn't-
forgotten?
Isn't this a rather famous World War II concentration camp movie?
Famous?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
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 What
When you're
what
talking about
was
kids
famous
in the
mean?
Holocaust. Kids in the Holocaust is the first thing I think of.
Well, Schindler's List comes first usually, but
No, not for me. That's adults in the Holocaust for me.
Yeah.
okay. Okay,
Were there
what
kids
about
in
Life is Beautiful? What about those kids in the Holocaust?
James, what were you going to ask?
What?
Sophie's Choice.
What were you, James? What were you going to ask?
Were there kids in Schindler's List? I don't remember kids being in it.
Yes.
Yeah,
of course.
there's the kids.
the girl in the red.
Yeah,
I know there's some kids in it. I mean, the movie doesn't focus on kids from what I remember. But it's been a long time.
But there's that one train scene with all the parents. It's like absolutely heartbreaking.
Sure. I'm not
Plus
saying
the only color in
I knew there were kids in the movie. It just wasn't a movie about kids. Whereas The Boy in the Striped Pajamas is about a kid, for sure.
It has 233,000 votes on IMDb.
Well, it was forgotten to me. All right.
Okay.
And it was not in the top 10 box office for that year. So, therefore, I watched it. This is a recent movie that I watched. So maybe that's why I think it's forgotten, because I had never heard of it until I did research. And I was like, oh, people are saying this movie's forgotten. So I'm going to watch it. And I watched it and I liked it. So that's why it's on my list. And it was good. I did have some issues with some of the portrayals. So the baseline of the movie, which evidently I don't need to say because everybody knows about this movie, evidently, but I'll say it anyway because I don't think that's true. This little kid who's the son of an SS officer is moved from the city to the countryside and told there's a bunch of farmers in his backyard and he's not supposed to go back there. He goes back there, of course, and he's met with an electric fence with a bunch of people in striped pajamas, in his words. And what he learns over time is they've moved to the countryside of Poland, and in his backyard is a concentration camp because it's World War II. And he meets a kid in the striped pajamas behind the fence who's a Jew who's captive because it's World War II. And he makes friends with this kid, basically. Over the course of the film, he comes to kind of understand what's going on, but he's only 8, so he doesn't fully understand. He just knows like he had to leave his friends. There's nobody here to play with, and this kid who's his age will talk to him and they can laugh and have fun, even though there's a fence between them. And you get to kind of see what an 8-year-old might have been sheltered from if his dad was an SS officer and he lived right next to a concentration camp, which seems like a weird confluence of circumstance. Probably my biggest issue is that it kind of it humanizes a Nazi family and gives opportunity to the mother, who also doesn't fully know what's going on at the beginning, but about halfway through the movie has figured out what's happening over there and has a problem with it. Yet she kind of like lets it, she expresses her dissatisfaction with the situation and yet does not do anything about it. You know what I mean? Like she says she doesn't want it to happen. She talks to her husband about it, and yet nothing changes. She doesn't like leave him or take the kids or anything like that. Towards the end of the movie, she tries to do that. And the end of this movie was weird because one, I was totally into the relationship that the two boys had. And I was digging kind of the mystery being unfolded to the family and then the child. And then the movie gets real dark at the end. As you can imagine, it probably should. And I kind of want to spoil this movie. Have you guys seen this?
No, but don't spoil it.
Don't spoil it. Okay, I won't spoil it. But man, this movie made me feel all kinds of things. None of them were like emotional. Like I did not cry at the end of this movie. I didn't feel bad at all. I felt weirdly satisfied by a very dark ending.
Oh.
Weirdly satisfied.
Weird.
Like weirdly enough that I felt weird about being weirdly satisfied.
Okay.
That's all I'll say.
James really wants to tell us the ending right now, Zach.
I really want to tell you.
He really wants to tell us.
I really want to tell you the ending. You guys will probably watch it and be like, "Well, how did James not see this coming?" But I did not. Check.
All
it
right.
out.
Well, I don't. Yeah. I mean, I don't usually seek out like children Holocaust movies, so it may be a while till I get to this one. But
I mean, I know according to the Wikipedia article, this movie's been criticized for like not really showing the horrors of the war, because most of his interaction, the young boy with the people in the camp, and 99% of the movie happens at this young boy's house, not at the camp. So like his interaction with anybody who's Jewish and in the concentration camp is with this young boy, and the young boy is like just a kid his age too. And they're not talking about the horrors of the war because neither of them know what's going on. They're 8 and they just want to play, type of thing.
No.
So that's what it's been criticized for, according to Wikipedia. And I understand that.
yeah, I don't like, I mean, not every movie has to be about everything. And, to say, oh, this movie is about, takes place during this one event, but doesn't show all the horrors of it. Like, well, what's the story being told? It's, so
Right.
it's like Oppenheimer when their criticism was, oh, it didn't show the horrors of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Like, well, that's
right.
not
Well, I
the
think it's
point
one of
of
those-
view or what the movie's about.
I think the criticism
event,
probably has continued since this movie came out, where like a lot of people are like, if you're going to make a movie about slavery, don't make it about the slave owners and make you sympathize with the slave owners. You know what I mean? Let's make a movie about the slaves, like from the slave perspective type of thing. I don't know. It's like making a Barbie movie, but 90% of it is actually Ken. It's like, no, just make a Barbie movie. I don't know why Barbie popped into my brain for that, but whatever. Whereas in this one, it's like,
wait. So what,
it's like a
why
Holocaust.
did
like an
why did the Jennifer
Oppenheimer
Lawrence
Barbie
movie pop
movie?
in your brain right now?
What Jennifer Lawrence movie didn't pop in my
Exactly.
brain?
What Jennifer Lawrence movie would pop in your brain? A Margot Robbie movie, though, because she's more famous. No problem.
No, Barbie is not famous because Margot Robbie's in it. Barbie's famous because it's a good movie and it's based on Barbie. That's
No,
the
we're
shocking
saying
thing, not that Margot
James,
Robbie's in it.
James, we're saying the opposite. Margot Robbie is famous because she's in the Barbie movie.
Right.
Yeah,
Not that.
I'm not disagreeing
Yeah.
with that. Anyway,
Right, but we're talking about fame.
my point is, in this movie, 98% of it is focused on the plight of an SS family.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
and the son of an SS family, and you come to care about this kid who is innocent in this because he's 8 and doesn't know what's going on, but other people around him clearly aren't. And so I think that's the criticism, and I'm not sure it would be quite as well received today. And I had a problem with it as I was watching it until the end, which I'm not going to spoil. That made me weirdly satisfied.
All right.
All right, Kyle, you're number 2.
My
Or number three?
3. My number
Yeah.
3. The boy with the striped pajama. My number 3 is the aforementioned Red Belt, directed by David Mamet, starring Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Chiwetel Ejiofor. You got
Oh, I
Chiweteled.
haven't. No, I actually know the actual name. This is a very interesting movie for me because it's about Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And this movie came out a year after I started jiu-jitsu, and I saw it when it came out. And I had a very limited knowledge of jiu-jitsu and UFC and the history of jiu-jitsu when I saw this movie the first time. And I rewatched this movie last night, having now done jiu-jitsu for 15 plus years, having much different knowledge about the sport, the art, the history, UFC. And I enjoy this movie even more now with the knowledge I have than when I saw it for the first time around. Just because this movie is written and directed by David Mamet, and I really want to know what is his connection to jiu-jitsu, because like this movie is sort of an indictment on UFC and Dana White and a little bit of the Gracie family, who started jiu-jitsu and kind of made it popular, and also started the UFC and brought that to North America, because there's a lot of depth to this movie where you have Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, who is this jujitsu instructor who's very pure. To him, it's all about the history and the sport, and he's going up against the monetization of jujitsu within this. It's not the UFC, it's not Dana White, it's not the Gracie family, but it's all the same players. And I found it very fascinating that David Mamet had this very specific view on jujitsu, and I'm really curious to know, like, what is his connection to it? Because, like, I know some of the famous jujitsu like celebrities, like Ed O'Neill's a big one. Anthony Bourdain was really into jujitsu, and David Mamet has never crossed my desk as being like, oh yeah, this guy's really into jujitsu. But he's,
as of 2021, he was a purple belt.
Okay, all right, so he does have some connection there.
Have you ever heard of Renato Magno?
Renato Magno?
I've heard that name.
He trains under him.
Oh, okay. So if he's Brazilian, is it Ranado?
ATO.
So in that case, it's pronounced Renato.
Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yeah.
It starts with an R and it's pronounced Renato.
Yes, because there's Royce Gracie, Hickson Gracie, and it's all spelled Royce Rickson. It's there's this whole Brazilian thing where at least on the Gracie side of the family, all the R's are pronounced like H's. It could be a Portuguese thing. I'm not sure, but
okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, this movie it's very well done. It's well directed. It's got really strong performances. It's got, I think, good jujitsu on screen too. There's definitely more like striking and mixed martial arts aspects that I don't personally train in, but watching the jujitsu on screen, I was pretty impressed. So this movie, it feels authentic to me.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, except for the red belt thing. That's all made up. So
But it's fun to have mythology like that.
Right. Yes. And the red belt is a very rare thing to see, and it's something that I will never see in my lifetime. But so it's cool that they at least gave a little. They did show how special the red belt really is.
It's a movie that I have fond memories of, but don't actually remember. So I need to rewatch it. You know what I mean? Like, I remember being a UFC fan at the time. It was like really big at the time, and watching UFC events on a monthly basis with my brother-in-law, was really into it, knew all the names and the players at the time, and then got hyped about them making a movie about UFC. And then I saw it, and it is not a movie that I think was actually made for people who were into UFC at the time.
No, it is not the movie that, like, even a lot of people who I trained with at the time, it was not the movie we were expecting to get at all.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I liked about it, was that it wasn't like Step Up, but, UFC type of thing. It was like a legit movie with pathos and something to say. And then I haven't seen it since. So I need to rewatch that one for sure.
No, then we got Kevin James and Here Comes the Boom.
Right.
That was the UFC movie that people were hoping for.
Did Red Belt take the wind out of the sails of like propaganda style UFC movie? Like one that glorifies it like a Rocky movie or other boxing movies? You know what I mean? Like, we haven't had a UFC movie that's like a boxing movie where it's like somebody comes up the ranks and then wins and everybody's happy about the final match.
Considering that only 21,000 people on IMDb have seen Red Belts, I don't think it really had a huge effect on the UFC franchise whatsoever.
I'm just saying there never was that movie.
I think Kevin James took the wind out of it by making a, Kevin James farts around in the octagon movie.
Yeah. I also think too, boxing has like one, maybe two notable events a year where like catches the zeitgeist, whereas UFC is so relentlessly scheduled. Like, people that are into it are seeing a pay-per-view like once, sometimes twice a month. Like, at some point they were doing 2 a month.
When this movie came out, UFC was like every 6 months. It really was a special event.
No. In 2008 they were doing 1 a month.
Really? They're doing 1 a month?
Oh yeah. They were pumping them out.
Okay. I thought they at least were still spacing them out.
No, it was hardcore. Zach?
My number 2 is a movie we watched for this podcast. I don't exactly remember why, but it's called Frozen River. James, do you remember why we watched Frozen River?
I probably made you.
But like, what was it a part of? I just don't remember what it had to do with.
There's an actress in Frozen River that won an Academy Award, I believe, right?
Okay.
Who's in it?
Melissa Leo.
Melissa Leo won Best Actress that year. So you might have seen it just because that was in the conversation, for sure.
But we weren't recording the podcast in 2008.
You're right. So that wouldn't have been the reason. I don't know.
So I don't know why we watched this movie, but we did, and I liked it a lot. It's in like Canada or Alaska or something, like the frigid north, and it's a very poor woman struggling to pay for anything, and then she decides to start smuggling drugs to make money, and the way to do that is to drive over this dangerous, like, thin ice lake, basically. So it's kind of like this, like, poverty thriller.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a really good acting, really kind of tense, like people making tough decisions because they're in tough times kind of movie. And it's really good. It's called Frozen River.
I figured it out. In episode 171 of this podcast in December of 2015.
Wow.
We watched and ranked 10 Christmas movies we had never seen, and Frozen River was considered a Christmas movie.
Nice.
For some reason. Couldn't tell you why.
Probably took place at Christmas.
Probably.
Well, it does take place in the great north of upstate New York.
Mm-hmm.
Is it upstate New York?
That's what it says here on Letterboxd. Yeah.
Oh, sounds very cold.
And it's the St. Lawrence River is the frozen body of water that they're crossing. So
yeah,
I'm guessing it must be about Canadian smuggling or something like that.
Yeah.
Good movie for sure. My only note in that episode's show notes is Melissa Leo is awesome in this. That was the only note I made for the movie. All right, my number 2.
It's not a tumor.
Is The Escapist, which is a prison breakout film, directed by Rupert Wyatt, who went on to direct the new what are they called? Planet of the Apes movies. He directed the 3 reboot Planet of the Apes movies. This movie stars Brian Cox, Joseph Fiennes, Dominic Cooper, a bunch of other British actors, if you're into them, and mostly dudes. All dudes, I would say, because it's a prison movie about guys in prison. And the movie has an interesting storytelling device in that, like, right at the beginning of the movie, you're seeing them break out of the prison. Or you're seeing them start to break out of the prison, like start their journey to break out. And then over the course of the movie, they're intercutting between the next step in them breaking out and also like the week before they broke out. So they're giving you like a little bit of them making the plan, and then they show a little bit of the plan being executed or it going wrong and then pivoting or whatever. And over the course of them, the week leading up, all of these things are happening to them that might threaten them actually making the attempt to break out. And I think it was really well told. It reminded me that Brian Cox is a force when he's allowed to not just be a background actor, because that's kind of what I think of him as. Like, whenever I see Brian Cox on screen, he's normally like, third fiddle to like a bigger name. And in this movie, he's the main guy. He's the guy making all the plans and putting all the pieces together. And I enjoy that about it. And if you like prison break movies, this is one of them. It's a good one. It's little seen, but I think worth your time if you're into those kinds of things. The Escapist, my number 2.
Cool. All right, my number 2 is one of 2 documentaries on my list. So, spoiler alert, my number 1 is also a documentary. And this one is called Anvil, The Story of Anvil.
Yeah, I like that movie.
All right. So Anvil was this Canadian metal band in the early 80s that never quite made it huge, but they're the bands that influence a ton of other bands that did make it big. So this documentary starts with all these major metal guys like from Anthrax and Metallica talking about Anvil and like how influential it was on them, but how Anvil themselves never quite broke out into the international mainstream like these bands did. This documentary then picks up in 2008 when the members of Anvil are now working regular jobs and they decide to go back on tour for like a revival reunion. And this movie chronicles their tour and all the ups and downs of it. And this is, I guess, a genre of documentary where it's like, let's just follow some interesting people around and see what odd situations they get themselves into, because the guys in this band are true characters. What I find most fascinating about this movie, though, is the real life plot of this movie is almost beat for beat the plots to Spinal Tap, where it's kind of like Spinal Tap is sort of a rise and fall and resurgence movie. And this is the exact same thing where like these guys go on this tour and they have all these, farcical things that happen to them. And then they break up over a girl and then they get big in Japan at the very end. And it's like, I was watching this movie and it's fun. And I'm like, this is Spinal Tap, but in real life. And for me, I think it also just shows how well Spinal Tap did its research, where they could like figure out the trajectory of rock stardom, even when they made that movie in '84. And here we are 30 years later, and it's still the same thing. So super. I mean, you don't have to like metal to enjoy Anvil, the story of Anvil. You just have to like eccentric characters.
Nice. Yeah, it's a fun movie for sure.
It's one of those oddball comedies where it's like just interesting people.
Yeah, it's like what's it, like an American Movie or whatever about the guy who's trying to make. Yes, it's very much in that vein.
Definitely, I agree.
Okay, my number one is another movie that we watched for one of our 10 Christmas movies lists. It is French. It's called A Christmas Tale. James, do you remember A Christmas Tale?
Maybe. Oh yeah, I didn't like this. It's a bit of family fighting.
Yes, family fighting.
I didn't
for
like
sure.
this one.
I loved it. I really, really loved it. It's about a dysfunctional French family that all kind of have to come together at Christmas time because the matriarch of the family has a life-threatening illness and needs bone marrow from one of the family members. And so there's a lot of like family dysfunction that, despite them not wanting to get into it, they have to get into it in order to like, work this out to like, what are they going to do about this situation kind of a thing. So there's a lot of like conflict, trying to find resolution in that conflict. Anyway, I found this one to have really complex characters, like really layered narratives, but also it just felt so authentic. It felt incredibly authentic. There wasn't an ounce of like artifice in this film. It just felt like I was a fly on a wall in a real family's, minor drama. And I thought it was something special. I really liked it. It's called A Christmas Tale. My number one.
Yeah, when I say I didn't like it, I respect that movie. It's very well acted. If you want to see a family fighting around the holidays, that's the movie to watch. I just don't care about that. I did not care about the interpersonal happenings of the family. But
sure,
it was very well made. I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
My number one most forgotten film of 2008 is Eden Lake. This is a good movie.
That's not forgotten.
What?
I've never
90,000 review or whatever star grade on IMDb. That's not a lot.
Well, I'll say one thing. That's high for all the other movies we talked about. But two, I'm saying it's not forgotten because I've never heard of it.
You've never heard of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That means it is forgotten.
Well,
No, I never knew about it in the first place.
If no one has seen the movie, can be considered forgotten?
Yes. Kyle, have you ever heard of Eden Lake?
I mean, as of 2 seconds ago, yes.
Before I mention it. Okay.
No.
Eden Lake, a great thriller starring Kelly Riley, Michael Fassbender, who's a good actor, and Jack O'Connell, who plays the brother in Sing Street. Okay. These are reasons to watch this movie. It's one of these movies where like this young couple goes on vacation. The husband or boyfriend, I don't remember if they're married, is like annoyed by the local kids, the teenagers around this vacation spot that they've picked. And he's annoyed because they're kind of like little hooligans that are like doing fairly innocent but annoying things. And so he confronts the local teenagers. He's like, cut it out. I forget what the inciting incident is, but eventually he's like just complaining to her constantly about them. And then they do something where he's like, I'm going to go say something to him. And so he goes to like a group of high school age teenagers and is like, turn down your music. Right. And the high school age teenagers are like, no, make us. And he's like, this is ridiculous. You're in high school. I'm not going to make you. I'm just saying you should do it because it's the nice thing to do. And they're like, screw you, old man. We're not doing it. And so he walks away, huffs away because he's not going to punch a high schooler, even though they're goading him. And so with that situation in mind, fairly close to the beginning of the movie, you can imagine how the rest of the movie plays out. Like things just kind of go from a fairly normal situation where a grown man is annoyed by teenagers to like a crazy ending to this movie.
Yeah.
Like an absolute crazy ending to the movie that that you'll just be shocked by. It's a great twist ending. It's a really dark movie because it goes places that you would not want your real life to go to, I would say. And also has a twist at the end that I definitely did not see coming. And not like I'm weirdly satisfied by this twist like the boy in the striped pajamas. More like wow, I need to watch a comedy right now because I'm not going to be able. I was disturbed by what happened at the end of this movie. Yeah, it's really good. If you like Michael Fassbender and you haven't seen all of his movies and Eden Lake's on that list, you should see it. He's really good in this movie as like the guy who will not concede to these teenagers. And Jack O'Connell, I don't even think I clocked him in the moment when I saw this movie because he's just so different than what he is in Sing Street. He's one of the teenagers in this movie. Maybe the leader of the teenagers, if there is.
Also, it came out way before Sing Street.
That's true. Yeah. It's a good one. My number one, Eden Lake. But don't watch it if you don't like horror movies.
See, that's
Would I like it?
You would like it because it's Michael Fassbender. He's acting his butt off. Jack O'Connell as well. Pretty much everybody is, doing their best with this kind of genre-ish movie. But it's also a horror movie that like has no spirits. There's no murderer in this movie. It's like it's a very realistic example of a somewhat benign situation with parties who will not let something go. You know what I mean? And things ramp up to ridiculous levels because people are stubborn, basically.
I like the idea of watching a horror movie with a twist, but then in practice, I just don't want to be watching grisly murder and being scared.
Sure. This is probably closer to what's that Michael Haneke movie about the home invasion? Funny Games. It's probably closer to Funny Games than it is anything.
That's not a selling point.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
It's probably like not near as serious as Funny Games, but like the deviousness of some people is like in there, mixed in.
All right. Cool. Well, all right. Well, I might add to the watch list. Just a
Also,
possibility.
91 minutes.
Bonus. My number one only has 6,000 views on IMDb, so I don't know if it can be considered forgotten if no one ever saw it in the first place. But it is another documentary, and in fact, it's another metal documentary. This is called Until the Light Takes Us. And this is a documentary chronicling the history of the Norwegian black metal scene in the early 90s. And the Norwegian black metal scene is famous for two things. One, for kind of cauterizing what black metal looks and sounds like moving forward in both its stylistic interpretation as well as sort of the look of the performers. But also for a lot of violent crime that was surrounding the music scene at the exact same time, specifically involving murders of people and more famously, the firebombing of various churches, Christian churches in the country of Norway. This movie is talking heads, so like it's half like history and half talking to people about that history, but the people they're talking to are the musicians themselves who were doing that history. So there's no historians talking about the music. It's the musicians themselves talking about the history. There's lots of sides to these stories, so you're kind of getting different variations on the same story. And most interestingly is they actually get the guy who was did the fire bombings, murdered a band member, was currently in jail when this movie was being made. They interview him, and he openly talks about his side of the story, however you want to take it about sort of both the music side of the scene, but also his involvement or not involvement in both murders and the church bombings. So, I mean, for me being a metalhead, someone who's into this kind of music, maybe not so much Swedish black metal or Norwegian black metal, but definitely like enthralled by all things metal, I found this to be very interesting and a good sort of primer into this scene, both historically and musically.
Nice. I'm seeing it's on
Interesting.
Tubi right now.
It's on Tubi. Oh, you can watch it on Canopy. That's a much better place. No commercials.
I don't have access to Canopy. Did you guys have access to Canopy?
I do via Zach.
Oh, Zach has access to Canopy.
Well, but he gave it to me though. So
I'm into this. Should I watch it?
yeah, so did you watch that Kieran Culkin movie, like the Lords of Chaos or whatever? That's also about the same thing.
Oh, is that about the same thing?
Yeah.
Lords of Chaos. Let's see. Did I watch that? I
Yeah,
don't have
Kieran
it marked
McCulkin.
watch. So no.
Okay. So don't watch that one. Just watch this one. Because like this is the actual story. Whereas the Kieran McCulkin version, or Rory, which one of those two? That's like the dramatized version. I think this one's much more interesting.
Lords of Chaos was Corey. Rory.
Okay.
Rory.
Okay. It was one of them.
Mhm.
Do you guys want to hear a quick story about how I made a Metalhead's Day last week?
Sure. You asked him to take a photo with you.
No, I did not. No.
Okay. Let's
So
hear it.
I was at a farmer's market. This is like a smaller one, like in a parking lot. And there was a woman at the end of the farmer's market playing viola, right? And
Mhm.
as I'm shopping, I'm listening to what she's playing, and I don't recognize this as being any sort of like classical style piece. And in fact, just like by the chords and how she changes her bowing and everything, it kind of sounds like black metal to me being played on a viola. So
Mhm.
my ears kind of perk up. I'm like, is she playing black metal right now? So she finishes the song. She's not singing or anything. It's just on the viola. And I walk over and I said, oh, hey, that was really nice. And she's kind of quiet and she goes, thanks. I'm like, oh, what was that song called? And again, she seems embarrassed and she's sort of like, oh, it's a Swedish song. It translates to like the Lord of blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, okay, was that Swedish black metal? And she like, yes. Like she's like lit up. And I was like, all right, nice. I kind of recognize that. And she was like, dude, and like gave me like a high five and like I think she doesn't expect anyone to recognize what she's playing at the farmer's market. I also was tipped off by the fact that she had black lipstick on and was wearing like a black metal t-shirt. So I had some context clues to the whole situation, but it was pretty cool. And I think she appreciated that someone actually recognized what she was doing out there.
Absolutely. I'm sure. That's great.
Then my mom made me give her $10.
Your mom made you?
well,
How old are you?
I talked to her and I walked away, and my mom was like, "You didn't give her any money?" I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, if you liked what she was doing, give her some money." And like, all I have is a $10 bill. And she's like, "Well, then give her the $10 bill." So I walked back over and dropped a $10 bill in her case. So yeah, Zach knows my mom. If she says to do something, you just kind of do it.
It's best that way.
You're right. It's just not to be trifled with.
Interesting.
So Kyle, was that called Until the Light Takes Us?
Yes, Until the Light Takes Us was the name of the movie. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
On Tubi.
And I would say if you're just interested in like, I've heard of black metal, I've heard of these church bombings, what was this all about? I think this is another good way to learn about that. It's better than reading Wikipedia.
Sure. Does it like you said it interviews the guy in jail for like murdering a band member or something like that? Is he like a villain, or do we sympathize with him?
He's a villain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Also on Tubi, Eden Lake.
Tubi's got commercials, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the last thing I want to do is watch like a horror thriller and then get an ad for, I don't know, Charmin toilet paper or something in the middle. And then get the same Charmin toilet paper ad every 10 minutes.
I know. That's like the worst thing about streaming with commercials is like they have like 2 commercials that they just rotate every 5 minutes.
Exactly.
And it's like,
yeah.
Why do they do it that way?
I don't know.
It's because I think that's who's paying for the ad space. It's probably not getting as many advertisers as like regular TV.
Right. But if I was paying for it, I'd be like, look, I want you to show my ad, but I don't want it to be so annoying as to turn people off. And so please don't show it twice in one commercial break.
Yeah, totally.
Twice in the same. Okay. So, I mean, it's bad enough when it's twice in the same program, but twice in the same commercial break.
I've had sessions on Tubi where they show me the same commercial twice in one break, then go back to the show, then come back and show me the same commercial twice again. 4 playings of the same commercial within like a 20-minute span. It's like, no, this is not good marketing. It's one thing to do it every break. It's another thing to show it twice in a row. I'd be pissed if I was paying for that airing.
Yeah.
But they probably don't even know. They probably just look at a number at the end of the month and they're like, oh, great. It was shown 1 billion times and we paid $100,000 for that.
I want to give a quick warning Until the Light Takes Us, just for anyone who does want to watch it.
Okay.
There is a lot of discussion of self-harm in the movie. And I believe there is a performance artist who performs self-harm on themselves. Not actually, but simulated.
Okay.
So like,
he shows what he used to do type of thing or what?
No, it's like someone is they're a black metal performance artist and they simulate self-harm.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense. So I know for some people that can be hard to watch. I just want to heads up. It is a violent subgenre of metal too.
Gotcha. Great list, fellas. I enjoyed it. Real quick, I have a couple of movies that I probably would have put on my list were I not have to already mentioned it on this podcast 1 billion times.
Yeah, I have a short list too. Go ahead.
Let the Right One In. I don't know if that's forgotten. I think maybe it's I don't know if it was ever found by the general public, but certainly people who are into movies know what Let the Right One In is. I think it's
for sure.
Pretty well known. And so I left that one off and we've talked about it. Pontypool, I think, is a forgotten film, but I talk about it all the time, so I left it off the list. Blindness, I already mentioned, and Synecdoche, New York is another one that I think movie fans like that movie and have seen it or at least heard of it, but I don't think the general public, if you said, have you ever seen Synecdoche, New York? They'd be like,
Yeah.
no, but I know who Margot Robbie is. So
Yeah, so I start with a list of 15, and then these are the 5 that didn't make the cut.
Okay.
Milk, the Sean Penn one.
yeah,
I don't think
that's
it's forgotten.
totally a movie worth watching.
Yeah, it's good,
That
but I don't
nobody
think it's
talks about.
forgotten. Yeah.
Right.
Let the Right One In, aforementioned. Ip Man, the Donnie Yen martial arts movie. I think just because Donnie Yen is more well known now, more people are discovering this movie.
It's crazy that they've made like 6 of those, and the first one was in 2008. Like,
Right. Well, he's not doing them anymore. Like he did the first 3.
right, but I mean, they're still
Yes,
making the
They're
series.
still making them. Yep.
Yeah.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall. It's right there in the title, but
Mhm.
it's a movie that I talk about a lot in this podcast, so it's not going to make it. And then The Wrestler. I don't know if people have forgotten The Wrestler or not. Probably not.
That's
Yeah,
another
I
one
think
that
so.
I don't think permeated the zeitgeist at all, but film fans like it.
Yes. So it didn't make the list either.
Sure. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode 595 of the Cinereelists. Just 5 short episodes away from episode 600. We appreciate you hanging out with us and your listenership. Don't forget, you can always send us an email to heyguys@cinereelists.com. Check out the video version of this podcast on YouTube. Subscribe there. Support us on Patreon. We'd appreciate that. Leave us an Apple Podcast review or follow the podcast on social media on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at Cinereelists. Or you could follow me on my Twitter or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
You can follow me on Twitter or Letterboxd at Shaban.
You can find me on Letterboxd at Peter SKB.
Next week, we will be watching a movie that is on all 3 of our watch lists, but we have not ever seen. That movie is to be determined.
By
You'll-
Zach.
By Zach, yes. Kyle and I have pre-selected 2 movies, and Zach will be deciding between the 2. Because
tell
there's
the
really
people what
nothing coming out this week.
Should we at least say what the 2 are so people want to watch 2 movies this week? They could.
Sure. What are the 2 movies? One of them is Possession from the 80s. Is that when the movie came out?
Yep.
Yeah.
The 80s movie, Sam Neill. The other one is a Russian sci-fi called It's Hard to Be a God.
Right.
That's the other one. Yep.
Both of them have, one of them has a 3.8 on Letterboxd, which is pretty high, and one of them has a 4.1. So they're both pretty well regarded movies, I would say, on Letterboxd. Thanks again for joining. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.